Third time lucky, Giles, maybe. Third time
this
lucky.
is turning into an absolute shambles. All right, okay, so last week we deleted the episode by accident. The software crashed and we lost it.
Mm-hmm.
Apologies for that because we've had radio silence. Welcome back, Motus Prodcast. What just happened today is we drove down to Brighton to record an episode with Joe Hendo and Callum Powell. Hendo's one went on for
Nearly 3 hours.
Yeah, nearly 3 hours.
Nearly 3 hours.
So what this is part one of that. We've split it into two. We then didn't get to record the one with Callum because they both had to go to a Christmas party.
Mm-hmm.
Then we then drove back to my place and sat down about half an hour ago and recorded intros and outros for each episode. And then just as Keelan literally was he's still wearing his bag now.
Yeah, I'm ready to go.
He was about to walk out the door. I then was sorting out the leveling and things and realised that I deleted this intro
And
the outro to this episode. So here we are again, third time lucky. As I said, this is part one.
Yes.
And in this, my brain is fried.
Well, what do we talk about in this? Basically, the rise of, if you like to call it fame, of Joe, from being a nobody to basically
the fastest man
alive. And just his story of that, I guess, and his mindset towards competition.
And how that changed going from the first speed comp to then being he's obviously going to win.
Definitely.
And then we dived into the fig topic.
Yes.
So no major kind of debates, nothing like that. More just his insight, a lot of past history that a lot of people won't know about, and also some future info, which is really interesting.
Mm-hmm.
And just some conversation on that front. And that was this entire podcast. And the other reason we've had to split this into two parts is because there's some stuff said in the second half that we need to just check. Well, Hendo needs to go away and check he's allowed to talk about it yet. But we're hoping he'll know in a few days and we can release that kind of within the next week.
Mm-hmm.
So enjoy this episode.
Yes, enjoy it with your ears.
We enjoyed it, definitely.
Yeah.
Not like we're enjoying doing this intro again. Enjoy it and let us know what you think, and we'll catch you at the end. Bye. All right, should we start recording?
Yeah.
Okay.
You see.
I've already started. Keelan, pin him to the chair. Pin him to the chair.
Oh no, he's got me. He's got me.
Joe, why did you compete with Fig and betray parkour?
No, I'm excited to talk about that.
Yeah, sorry about that, Joe. I just figured that would be a funny way to start the show.
Yeah, no.
We'll be more serious now.
Not going to lie, I was quite scared grabbing hold of you because you'd just been in a fight.
He's strong, he knows what he's
Imagine you
doing.
still got the kind of oh, fuck.
Oh, look, there he was.
Some flashbacks.
Yeah.
In the mic checks, Joe's voice was all soft and immediately peaks when he laughs there. So.
Oh.
Well, I did just scream. And
very
so
true.
I was grabbed from behind. Like a maniac.
Welcome back to the Motus Prodcast. Apologies about last week. Myself and Keelan recorded a lengthy one where I may have got a little bit drunk and it's somewhat emotional, I would say.
I think it might have been for the greater good it was deleted because...
In some ways, I'm quite happy it didn't go out.
Yeah.
But it was a genuine accident that the whole thing just didn't export, and I don't know why. So hopefully that won't happen with this episode. But we have a guest, a notorious, undefeated guest, Joe Hendo.
Welcome.
Hello.
How you doing? Oh, for fuck's sake, that was me. Sorry.
This is actually the second time because we did a little micro one, didn't we?
Oh,
yeah,
true.
the NAPC
mini-series.
mini-series.
Which is annoying because that kind of... I could see the potential for a full podcast, but now you're here. We've been talking about it for ages.
Yeah, it was almost like we didn't want to stop talking.
Yeah.
The competition was about to start.
And it was literally like, I should probably actually go and compete in speed now.
Yeah.
How you doing? How you recovered from your fight, which we will talk about.
That was a couple of days ago. And yeah, I'm good. Face is still a little bruised. Got a nice black eye. And ribs are a little sore, but no, good. Yeah.
Nice. And you're still able to train? Have you done any
totally.
parkour since?
I haven't, just because it's been wet and I've been busy.
Wet,
But mainly just wetness. Yeah. But if it was good weather, then I would have
still
trained
be able
already.
to.
Yeah. Sick. Let's wind it way back, because we're going to do more of an in-depth one than we obviously did in Canada.
Before the hair.
Yeah. Where did you cut? Like, I mean, I knew of you before you had long hair.
Oh right.
We were talking about you got lost there. No.
When so we were discussing this. When do you feel like you kind of
Grew your hair. No, sounded like that's where you're going.
Well,
like, when did you pop off? You just suddenly. I know when I was aware of you prior to you becoming like the people's champ, and that was obviously when I think the world got to know you, like the parkour community. But you've always been in the Brighton community. Like, when did you start training?
2006, I think. So
Yeah, so like Jump Britain time.
Yeah. Jump Britain was what got me on it.
How old would you have been?
9-10 years old.
9 or 10.
How old are you now?
23.
23.
So I've been
Awesome.
training like 13-14 years. Yeah.
So cool.
What were your parents like with you training that young? Because that's not like, oh, he's a young teenager. Like, that's you're a kid.
Yeah, there was a lot at the beginning, to be fair. Like, it's hard, timelines get mixed up when it's that long ago, but I think a lot at the beginning, like the very beginning, was literally just like with Jay, like in like Jay's back garden, like jumping. He had a little sort of concrete deck that was about a foot raised from the grass, and we'd just like
Sick.
jump off that, and like it had a little wall, we'd like vault over that and then climb up onto his garage and like just take height drops off it.
And
stuff.
what got you into it? Was it Jump Britain or?
Well, it was actually, I kind of started training before knowing what parkour was. I was doing, so I made friends with Jay, who, like, I guess a lot of people might have sort of seen him about.
Jay Batrick,
Jay Batrick. He was in the year above me at school, and I sort of like made friends with him when I was about 8-9 years old, and very quickly, like, I guess we just had similar minds, so we became like super close. And he was, being older than me, he also, like, I guess I kind of viewed him as a bit of a big brother, and like a lot of the time, like, I'd like mimic a lot of the things he did, like his style. A lot of his the clothes I had would be like hand-me-downs from him and stuff like that. And he'd been training martial arts since he was like 4.
Fucking hell.
And I started training ninjutsu with him. He was going to ninjutsu at the time, so I started going to these classes.
Sick.
And in ninjutsu, you'd do like some like rolls and stuff like that, and like we'd like jump over swords and things like that, and do like cartwheels and shit. And we had in our heads the idea of just being like ninjas or something.
Like appreciating the movement.
And I think we always thought of like having, like, we always thought we'd live lives where we'd like be going on some crazy adventures, like exploring the world, like pure movie type stuff. Where
you did fairly well out of those aspirations, didn't you?
And so we wanted to be able to like fight, and then also like do parkour, but not realizing parkour was its own thing at that point. Like, just be able to like you see in films and video games, like climb around and jump between things and stuff like that. So we'd start, like, Jay's mum or my mum would like take us like on the walk from our sort of school to where our martial arts classes were in the centre of Brighton, and on the way we just called it like obstacle courses, but essentially just these like parkour routes, like shimmying. We'd have like stealth incorporated. There'd be like people's windowsills, and we'd like shimmy under the windowsill, and if they spotted us, to be someone like washing their dishes at the window or whatever, we'd like shimmy along and then like balance along a wall and then like jump down into a flower bed and all this stuff.
Wow.
And then like after a while of that, Jay discovered Jump Britain and showed me, and then it was like, okay, this is what we do.
It's like, oh, we actually already do this.
Cool.
Yeah.
It's weird. It's like, I wonder how many hundreds of years that like youth have played in that sense, and then like just not suddenly, like eventually it just, the right shit seemed to happen in succession in Least, and it became a thing.
I'm
like, because
sure,
kids
like,
have always been like that.
Like, it goes hand in hand with just climbing trees. And like, everyone sort of does that sort of thing.
And just the right kind of mindsets and conversations and things in the right place turned it into like...
Took a few strange people to carry on doing it, basically.
Slowly grown and grown. It's fucking...
I wonder like if parkour hadn't been, you know, invented and labelled by the Yamakasi, and Jump Britain was obviously never existed. Like, I wonder whether the sort of playing around that me and Jay were doing would have just died off, or whether it would have.
True.
Because it was like finding out that there is a thing called parkour that really like consolidated it. Like, okay, now it
can keep you in the mix of it, like, because more things will pop up from that, right?
Exactly.
Interesting. When did you expand like your training group? Like, who was the first people
There were a
you
bunch
start
of
going
people,
out.
like older people in Brighton, who had like a group. There was like, it was back in the days, it was before Facebook, so it was back in the days of like blogs.
Oh,
just
right.
websites.
Bebo.
Like, yeah, or not even blogs. No, forums.
Yeah,
Forums. And so there were just websites dedicated to. There was a website called, I think the website was called Motion in Action, and there was this group Seafront Freestyle, and they just meet like 9 a.m. every Saturday at the Suicide.
It's amazing how everyone used to meet so early, right?
Yeah.
Like I used to get up to IMAX for like 9, 10 a.m. and now people are like 1. Yeah.
That's mad.
Yeah, I don't know why it was like that back in the day.
It's
Like,
cool. I think it's because it's just pure passion. There's no like future within it, is there?
Yeah.
So it's kind of just like all we want to do is this. There's no like
yeah.
end game.
So strange.
and
cool.
when I was at the age then as well, where like I hadn't even hit teens yet, sort of thing. Like I was still, 10 years old probably.
That little
so
brat.
I was like, I hadn't hit the like. I was still getting up early naturally. Anyway.
Yeah.
Like,
You
I
weren't
was
sleeping
that
in.
as a kid. Like I wasn't sleeping in. I was getting up. So it just sort of made sense. You'd be training from like 9 to 9
All the way
like,
through.
12-hour
Yeah.
days, like just having like a pint of milk and a custard creams halfway through the day because you
Can
had
of
your own
nourishment,
money and you were
like,
like,
yeah.
what else would I buy? Like biscuits and milk.
So yeah, I mean, just to
But no, it was pretty much so I was aware of their existence, but when I first started, it was before I was allowed to like cross roads on my own and stuff. Like I wasn't allowed to go out in the city on my own, and so kind of pretty much expanding and meeting a wider community went hand in hand with just like being able to go out into the city on my own.
As soon as I was,
as soon as I was like had that independence, me, Jay, Henry, like the friends.
yeah,
I was
what
with
happened
at
to
the time.
Henners?
Oh, he's doing just mad stuff with his life now as well.
Really?
Like so Henry was our other like best mate who trained with us and was in our sort of like team. We had a few names. I think we were called the Urban Street Shadows at one point.
It's always three things with the urban.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah, couldn't be a more typical like parkour name. I swear, like.
It's got to have urban. It's got to be animalistic or kind of dark in a way.
Yeah.
So I wouldn't have known this guy, Henry.
No, probably not. Henry
He's
Ashworth.
in Brighton Parkour,
Henderson
which was that video I made like years ago with Callum and that lot.
Yeah.
By the way, to anyone listening, the question I was going to ask is: so you have always lived in Brighton, right?
Always,
Because you are definitely, I think, one of the like the consistent faces of like Brighton parkour in that way, in the same way that like Callum, Sasha, and people like that. But we are currently down in Brighton. We're actually, if it sounds a bit echoey, which I don't know if it does, but we're in Callum's lovely flat. He's sitting on the sofa.
It is a lovely flat.
You can make a noise if you want.
We're
not lying.
We're doing him next, so we're doing him. But yeah. So I mean, you are a Brighton sort of whatever the word is.
Born and bred.
Yeah. But I mean, so this is the thing, is you have always been about, and then you slowly became more and more kind of like consistent with, I would say, your presence, and I think people started to become more and more aware of you. The time when I really remember like seeing you kind of consistently was actually when Kai started training hard for speed comps.
Yeah.
And then you...
So did you not know anything of Hendo before then?
I knew of you, but
I'd
I'm
see
sure...
you in like Star videos and stuff.
Yeah, and I'm sure I'd probably met you a number of times, but like I don't really remember like having proper interactions.
Yeah, that's the thing. I was like for the longest time I was someone who was kind of around the, like, I don't know what to call it, like the sort of notable people, like the people who everyone does sort of know the names of, like you and like the Storrow guys and like all those, like the people who you sort of you see when you're at London Jams or whatever, and, like back in the day, and it was like, oh, that's Giles, or like that's Callum or Toby T or whatever, and I was kind of known vaguely around those circles just because I grew up in Brighton and so was training with Callum and Sasha, and I would like from a young age as well, like from as soon as I was again like allowed to sort of leave the house on my own and stuff. Like when I was about 10 years old, I was getting the train up to London for the 3-run jams and stuff like that. Like so I was kind of about, but I wasn't someone notable by any means. Like my ability and stuff didn't make me stand out and things like that. I wasn't particularly like.
It is that weird thing where it's the kind of. It's a sad truth, I guess, but that we're a bit fickle in the sense of it's harder to get known unless you are a good athlete.
Yeah, but I mean, I don't know if that's even like. I mean, it makes sense.
Yeah,
right?
it makes sense. I think it's the only reason it's sad is because you get kids who kind of aspire, but it's like, well, you've got to get good to get noticed.
Yeah,
Like,
yeah. I mean, the like noticing without the goodness would be sort of mute, really.
Yeah,
I mean, it would be pointless. I don't know. Like, yeah, like it makes sense that like in a community focused around a sport, a discipline, whatever you want to call it, like the people who are gonna notice are the people who are like good at it.
Yeah.
Like, they're good at this. And to be fair, like I feel like there's people who aren't necessarily the best, but you get to know them because they've got like a really sick personality and like,
or they have a different trait that's sort of useful.
Yeah. And I was definitely like, I feel I was very naturally introverted and pretty shy as a kid as well, so I wouldn't have been like a big personality, and I wasn't particularly like good or whatever either. Like, so you'd sort of, oh yeah, it's that kid or whatever. But and I was young.
Were you training at like the same? Because obviously you're much better now, but did you have a similar drive back then, or do you think you were more just doing it only for the fun? Because obviously you're still doing it for the fun now, but.
But like now you're like an athlete.
You now,
Yeah. I was always like, I always had the drive to progress, but there was I can't remember why. Like I don't know. But I feel like that's with everyone. Like everyone like in parkour is all about progression.
It's enjoyment,
I guess
isn't
it's
it?
the point. Is that you just like, that's where the satisfaction comes from. It's like achieving new things and seeing progressing. Yeah, and I never really made videos or anything like that either. There was like maybe a couple videos I like tried to make at one point and just never got round to finishing them. So it was very kind of just intrinsically motivated, I guess. I was just kind of doing my own thing and with Jay and with Henry and like and then sort of slightly later on with like Callum and Sasha and people, but not really documenting it, not putting it out there, just interested in progression for my own, just for itself, I guess.
That's cool.
This ties in well with something that I want to ask in a minute, actually. But
I think it was actually maybe the incorporation of more like extrinsic, like external factors, motivating factors on progression that went hand in hand with my new sort of rate of progression when I did start to become stronger mentally, and then as a result more known as well.
Interesting. That's crazy actually, because I have a sentence written down that is so related to those exact words you just said. Well, I more just want to keep going on about like, so where you, I feel, became kind of most consistently known was Kai started training speed because he was like, cool, that's going to be my focus. You started training a lot with him and then obviously realized that you were good and enjoyed it, I guess. And then you had that summer in America where you went from like, oh, that local Brighton kid to the fucking people's champ of the parkour community. And it was like this massive switch up in just there were people who in a space of a few weeks went from not knowing you to vocally calling you like the people's champ. Yeah, and it was just everyone wanted to get behind you, and it was just this rise of success.
That was when the name Hendo came about as well.
Yeah,
I'd never heard Hendo in my life before.
And then it was Henderson.
And then,
that's crazy.
That's cool.
Team Hendo, all that stuff.
I'm not sure whether that was me or not.
It might have been, it was definitely.
We were watching in Seoul, weren't we?
Yeah. Oh fuck.
And it was sometime in the morning, and I was commenting on my phone on the live stream. Go on Hendo.
And it was like Team Hendo, yeah.
And then I think Brandon was doing
the
yes.
And then he carried on calling you Hendo from then.
Yeah, it was.
The Star Boys were watching in Seoul, and then he kept.
So the time that was happening, it was the summer of 2016. That was the same summer that the Storers were in Asia filming Roof Culture.
I'd totally forgotten that.
And you were.
I don't know if the audience could just hear that, but Callum just realised that. So we were out in Seoul, and he thinks that potentially the Hendo thing, because now it's just it's brought about the memory. We're sitting in. It would be super early in the morning. We'd wake up and like drink coffee and watch NAPC and Apex, and then go out and shoot Roof Culture. And we'd all comment on the live streams and stuff. And Callum thinks maybe he was the first person to be like, Team Hendo or Go Hendo.
Yeah, I knew it was definitely like the Storo guys.
Yeah,
I'm sure.
Because what I remember is Brandon, really driving it, because Brandon would say like, sort of Team Hendo, the people's champ, and stuff like that, and it like
because Brandon was doing the live commentary, and then you had the comments on the live stream, and the Storas and you, I guess, were.
It was
were
the hashtag
watching
Team
from
Hendo.
Seoul. This was Apex International, is what it was.
That was it.
Which I actually that was just the qualifiers for Apex International.
Yeah.
And yeah, the Storas were just like absolutely spamming the live stream with like Team Hendo, which created like then Brandon caught onto it, was like Hendo, hashtag Team Hendo, all this stuff, and then also as a result of just them spamming the comments and other people kind of joining in, I think that's where the People's Champ thing came from initially as well.
Yeah,
it was like,
I think England is quite good at getting behind in the parkour community. It's quite good at getting behind like a person and almost uniting behind them. Yeah. And I think because England's like not crazy big compared to someone like America, there was that force of suddenly it felt like everyone in England was watching you progress and being like, yeah, fuck the Americans, go on, Hendo.
And it was like everyone else who was doing well in that competition were
well, it was like Mish, who's like a fucking Greek god.
Before even that, because this was just the qualifiers.
Yeah.
And it was, so Mish was like, there were a bunch of people who were already qualified who were like, the pro athletes.
The household names of speed.
Mish, Kai, Alex Schauer, Pedro Salgado, all these kind of people. And I was coming in through the qualifiers. Like my first time, I literally, the trip came about, I worked on like building sites, like labouring for about a year, saved up some money, and then literally spent all of it just on flights to America.
Trip. I was going to ask why you were there.
It's like the Titarenko story, really, where you went from not a nobody, but like to the world a nobody, and then through one competition went from like from the bottom of the league to the top. Like,
that's
sick.
cool.
But everyone else in that qualifier was like an American kid who'd like been brought up in that gym basically.
Yeah.
And then there was just me, this like random English kid. And
hadn't been to the gym before. No one knows you. And
that's sick.
That's really cool.
And then sorry.
No, I was just gonna say I didn't watch it live. I just remember seeing like the replays on like social media. Fucking hell. Because that was obviously when I'd only seen you in Sora videos, so that was
right.
Yeah.
But so that, I mean, you then obviously went on to win NAPC, and around that, like, I mean, that's where that name and the People's Champ instead of the fastest man, that all start to spike. And over the like following year or two, it like undeniably defined who you were. From an outsider's perspective. It was like, oh, that's Hendo, he's the fucking speed god, like that's him, that's all, not it's all he does, but like, and I feel like what was that like to almost suddenly have something that was very defining? Because I mean, it must happen to other athletes within this sport where it's like Pasha, it was like, oh, Pasha always wins out emotion, and it was this expectation and kind of, you had a label almost of just like, you're the fastest guy, you're gonna win this.
It was interesting. Like, obviously, it went hand in hand with just being known at all. So it's like, I guess you've got to separate the two of like going from not being a name at all to like suddenly like being a name was like incredible, and super sort of strange and surreal. Going from but specifically like being known for that one thing like speed, it put a lot of pressure on me to then feel like I wanted to do well at further speed competitions. Like the next speed competition I did, which was Hop the Block, it was like, felt like now I have to prove that wasn't just a one-off sort of thing.
For sure,
I didn't just fluke that. So super high pressure. And then, I don't know, I guess after the majority of my actual speed training, the vast majority, like specific speed competition training, took place before that summer in the build up to it. And then after that, since then, I've done very little like actual speed training. I've just like, just trained and then turned up to speed comps. And
it is interesting actually, because it's not like you're ever out like in Brighton sprinting through spots.
No.
Like you move efficiently and you might put a line together that isn't a single movement, but you're not, you don't. But I mean, you do, I think in recent years, you've definitely started treating yourself more like an athlete, because I've seen you kind of going for runs with like weighted backpacks and things. So like you obviously...
Oh yeah, that wasn't so much for like parkour and stuff.
That's the thing, that's just maintenance, isn't it? Like,
yeah.
Do you think you could have? I mean, were there parts of you that wanted to train more for speed, or was that almost putting extra pressure on?
So in the build up, in fact, the thing that like got me even to
Can I just interrupt slightly? Can you just try to keep your mouth facing towards the microphone?
Oh yeah. So I don't know why I'm speaking to the sea.
But it's that thing,
happens though,
you don't necessarily always want to look at this.
Yeah.
And so in the, I guess, year preceding that summer, like 2015 into 2016, I started to just take like trying to make something of myself in parkour as more of a serious thing. Like that was my focus. It kind of came in conjunction with Kai moving to Brighton, and like
when did you join Storm?
I was invited to join Storm the night that I won an APC.
Oh, okay.
Oh, sick.
I lost the odds from Jesse Peverell to say to Kai, so when am I getting put on Storm?
Oh, really?
And, it was like over dinner with all the athletes, like the after party, eating before we went out, and then Kai was like, "Is that something you'd be interested in?"
Put on the spot. If anyone can hear that alarm, Hendo's Lambo the alarm's going off, but he's parked it outside. But we'll just ignore it.
That must have been fucking weird.
Yeah, that was super weird. But what was I? Oh, so yeah, I'd started to take, just pushing myself mentally. I realised I actually gave myself an ultimatum where I had applied to university. I'd come out of college. I'd taken like a year off where I kind of went travelling, did some stuff with some school friends, and like and this is UK college, so 18, like graduating, essentially like high school. Had taken a year off.
It's basically
not really utilised it. A gap
Yeah.
year, with the idea to apply to university the next, at the end of that, and then go to university. I then did do that. I applied to university, got a bunch of offers, accepted one, but then was like, fuck, like, I want, and I'm not sure what it was. I guess I always kind of knew that, but I hadn't really thought of it, that like really I'd like to do parkour, and just keep focusing on that if I could. And so I was like, okay, I'm going to defer my placement to university, so it gets put off for another year. I have another year, and then I have that place like waiting for me, and I'm going to just try and see if it's possible that I could make something. And at that time, like I'm no one. I'm not like I'm not known, and I'm not particularly like good either. Like I've been training for 10 years or something, and like it's just been very slow, steady progression. And that year, just had that ultimatum where like I'm probably going to go to university, but
that's
I'm
good.
It's
a good mindset.
Yeah, cool.
Yeah.
You crammed it all into one.
Yeah.
I think just the explosiveness of just having that last year must have been just fucking
and it put a lot
and
more pressure on me. And I think I am someone who just generally works well, like with having pressure on me, like having some sort of external, like you have to do this, makes me kind of like flourish, I guess, in a way. It just does good things to me when I have pressure on me. And then so I'm taking my mental progression more seriously. Like it affects like the everyday little training things, like looking at a challenge and being like, oh no, that's real scary. Like something about having that, like, no, but this is it, like you're going for it now. You understand that the difference between like you and Callum, say, is that Callum looks at challenges that he's like, oh no, it's a bit scary, and then he goes, but I'm going to do it anyway. I'm going to take the steps.
It's like, why is it scary? Oh, because of that. But actually, that's not a variable that should affect me. Like,
exactly. And if you want to get to that level, then you have to do it by starting at the smallest step and just saying like, no, I'm not just going to immediately back down from this because it's scary. That's the point. I'm going to figure out how to break it down and how to achieve it. And then Callum and Kai start training speed stuff. So I'm training with them a lot anyway. They're the two like most active people right now, and me. So we're training a lot together in Brighton. And they start training speed stuff because they've both been invited to Apex International. So they're doing what you said, sprinting around spots. They'll plan out routes and then race against each other.
So naturally, you're going to join in.
Yeah. Like, so I started joining in
because I've been around Kai and he's doing speed stuff, and I'm not going to join in.
Yeah, exactly.
And suddenly there's that enjoyment. Yeah.
It's just a fun new challenge. You're like, oh, sick! Like we've never done like races before. Like, this is applied in that way. And Kai and Callum both had like a history of speed comps, and they both like won or podiumed in them in the past. And then in these like trainings that we were doing, in these like practice speed routes, I was consistently like beating them just in these like routes that we were setting. And I started to realize to myself, like, hang on, like if they're winning like international competitions, and you're beating them, then two and two together.
Maybe I'm good at this.
And they sort of encouraged me. So I started thinking about like, well, maybe I should go to where they're invited and being flying out to go to Boulder, Colorado for Apex International. Maybe I should go there and like try and qualify. And like they encouraged me to do that, and then that's where I worked for like a year. Spent all my money to go there and just sent it. Like
that's crazy.
Very cool.
That's crazy.
Speaking of kind of the pressure and like how to sustain your motivation, I mean, there's a bit I want to talk to you about, because I think your mindset has definitely shifted. I don't know where it is now, but with regards to how much effort you want to put into speed comps. But
I want to know about that.
There's definitely been periods where you've been fucking determined, and and it works. So like, there's kind of two questions here, but what do you find is the defining thing in what makes you so, like, do you have to believe yourself that you are the fastest person in the room and like you're going to win? Because when you commit to a movement, it's like you basically have to expel all doubt that you're going to fail and commit. And is it you're like on that kind of start line, are you just like, I'm going to win, or is it just I'm going to do my best on the course? And I guess like, what do you channel into that? Because I've seen you, I think a lot of people have seen you, to be fair, like when you have had mistakes, you can get seriously pissed off at yourself. Like I've seen you kind of look furious, and you're not like, fuck you, Kai, or fuck you, Brody, or something like this. You're you're so annoyed at yourself just for a moment. And so there's obviously a lot going on like in your head, in energy, and like you want that. So kind of, how do you channel that? What is it like?
It's definitely, so the idea of like stepping into a gym or whatever and thinking like having to know you're the fastest person in there, having to know you're going to win, it's definitely not that. I've never, every time I compete, like even having like the track record that I sort of now have, every time I step into a gym, every time I like see people start practicing myself, I'm just like, well, this is when the game's up, kind of thing. Like, now's the time. I'm thinking, like, it's revealed.
He's fast.
And it feels like, oh man, like I've got no chance. Sort of thing. And I think that is like, to be fair, an important part of what does drive me to often be successful, is that like there's no complacency there. I think that the time that I step into a competition and I'm like, I've got this, like these guys are nothing to me, like I'm going to smash them no matter what, that's the time I'm going to be totally destroyed. Because I like, when I'm practicing, I put in like the most possible effort to the last possible second, because in my head I'm just like terrified. I'm just like, there's no way I'm gonna win this unless I prepare.
And is that like a fear of?
That's cool.
Is that like do you just know you're going to be pissed at yourself if you don't do well?
Well, that's the motivation is the weird part. Like at first, the first like NAPC, for example, that was Apex. Like I qualified and didn't even think of myself as being able to compete with the sort of like pro big name guys. So I didn't really apply myself at all. I think I came last in that competition. And then during just that trip in America, something changed in me mentally, and I was like, maybe I can actually compete with them. So then going into NAPC that first time, it was like, my goal is now not just to qualify, it's to qualify and then conserve my energy in a way that puts me in a position where I can push to do as well as I can in the competition. Yeah. And I was imagining like maybe at most I can podium, and that would be incredible. But in my head at that point, my motivation was like, I knew at that point, or I had some inkling of what a big deal it would be for me. Yeah. And as a result of it, it was like that trip, but certainly that trip, like just culminating in winning NAPC, it is what you said, like what you said kind of turned me from not being known at all to suddenly being, this name, like and having all this like people's champ and Hendo and all this stuff. And even like observable, like at the beginning of that trip, I had, I think maybe just under 2,000 followers. By the end, I just hit 10k. Yeah,
that's so cool. Yeah,
I was asked to join Storm that night. Like it was very much just the
the catalyst. Yeah.
Feel very surreal.
And
just
so
that.
yeah, for sure.
It's a lot at once.
Yeah, definitely. But I'd almost planned for it. Like,
yeah.
And that's why it felt like so much pressure at that point. It did almost feel like life or death in a way, but not actual. Like there's not many times I'm as focused as when I'm either in a competition like that or doing something dangerous like a roof gap, something like that, or a descent. And it's because they both almost feel like life or death. Like the one that like is a roof gap where there are actually deadly consequences, that is actually life or death. That first competition, that was almost like the life that I would dream of living, or the death of that dream. And if I hadn't won that competition, at that moment, if I hadn't just gone a split second faster than everyone else, I would have gone back home, and the next couple of weeks I would have gone to university.
And it could have very easily changed. Yeah.
I wonder if
I probably would have like faded out of training.
Well, that's because if you go to uni and like if you hadn't had that success and you sort of didn't feel like that was a viable option, then you get into a bit more partying and things. Very easy for that to then slow down, and then before you know it, like
crazy.
Yeah.
And then the motivation I think changes in every competition. So
sure.
Often it has been partially money, like as a sort of someone trying to live off parkour. I feel like you've expressed quite a few times in the podcast like what the reality of that is.
Yeah.
Like, there's very little money in parkour, and so like you'll be going between
says the one with the Lamborghini standing outside.
Times have changed, baby. There was probably two years where I was literally living just off competition winnings.
Yeah.
And I was only able to do that because I was living with my parents and stuff like that. Like it's not enough to be able to really live, but it was like enough to sustain the lifestyle without having to get be working at Sainsbury's or whatever like that, which I did parts of before that month. And then literally just living like. Yeah, I don't think I had any sort of I didn't really have any commercial jobs or anything in that time.
Surely that was
literally just living off
a lot of pressure as well, though, because that's.
And that
you got to eat.
Literally
got to compete.
That's why you're fast, because you just weigh nothing because you haven't eaten in 2 weeks. Like.
Right.
Did the motivation change over time? Because it kind of I don't know if it gets boring, but like you've been doing speed for ages. And the motivation might be prize money. Is that because I know you've been thinking about different things, like you've given skill competitions a go as well, and you've done well in that. I don't know about style if you're thinking about that as well, but like, is that because of it getting boring, or the challenge isn't there anymore, or like? Well,
that ties into that thing that I was talking about, because I heard this fact the other day that is. And the reason I wanted to talk about it because you said extrinsic and I had extrinsic written down, and I was like, big words.
Fancy words.
Apparently, material extrinsic rewards for doing something are scientifically proven to cause motivation loss.
Yeah.
So if you love doing something, they did all these studies where like they'd get people to sort of do a drawing. They get a load of people to do a drawing and give them nothing, and they give a load of people to do a drawing and they'd give them sort of payment or whatever. The people who were given the payment over time didn't want to do it so much because there was like a purpose behind it, whereas the other people just found the enjoyment in the thing. So it's like...
Interesting.
I was sort of curious to see, because I've heard you sort of say that you're not as fussed about pushing speed and stuff like that, and it's like, is that a factor because it just became source of payment?
I think the competition always was extrinsically motivated. Like the training was intrinsic, and the training has always just been. I didn't start training or train for all these years because I was like, when I'm older, I'm gonna be a speed athlete or whatever. It's just pure enjoyment. Like that is what a large part of just what gives me like satisfaction and meaning in my life is just like progressing at that skill. But the competition, it was always like my very first competition, like flying out to America to do those. It was with the purpose of like this could. Grow my name, which might enable me to continue living the lifestyle of doing that. So the things like competitions have always been extrinsically motivated. But it's like an extrinsic motivation of enabling a life
that you wanted to live,
that I want to live, which involves like doing parkour for the intrinsic reasons.
But it was just making sure that you could maintain that.
Yeah, and I think the reason that often like, well, and the reason for me not being so interested in doing competition, as it's, well, I say that I haven't like faded out of competition at all. I haven't done any less, but my like, I've toyed, like every competition I've been at in the last like year, it seems I've kind of been like, because I do put a lot of pressure on myself, and it always feels pretty horrible like at the time. Although it often feels nice afterwards, but it's like all the time I'm thinking like, why do I sort of bother?
Why do you put yourself through?
Because you don't need to make a name for yourself anymore.
And that's the reason. It's because the motivation's always been extrinsic, and there's just less and less extrinsic reason. Like as I don't, you know, if I win NAPC now, I don't get any more followers.
No.
You know, I went from like 1,000 to 10,000 by winning it the first time. Now like I can win NAPC and in the same day like lose 500 followers because I've only been posting gym clips because it doesn't have any bearing on
Which
my
I guess
name.
is a sad thing I mean that's why we need to almost grow these competitions, because technically I mean if you won the X Games, you're going to gain a huge amount of followers because of the outside viewership.
Your life fucking changes.
And then the prize money for most competitions isn't it was like it's, to be fair, it's still worth getting, and especially when if like trips are self-funded and I'm like,
it's always going to cover costs
to
really.
Yeah, but that's a lot of all it. I mean, a lot of the prize money will literally just go to covering costs.
Yeah, I mean, most competitions are a few grand max.
Well, no, one to two.
Max, which is like, it sounds like big money when you're young, and then it's amazing how quickly that shit can just like I fucking paid £450 on brand new tires yesterday for my car because I need as you get a bit older, that shit just seems to disappear.
Yeah,
and you're like,
definitely.
It's so savage.
So suddenly, like, you know, NAPC winning NAPC used to be, you know, the difference between 1,000 and 10,000 followers and like no money and like £2,000
enough to live off for a few months.
Yeah. And now it is doesn't get me anything like, you know, name wise, doesn't get my name out there at all, and it gives me just about enough money to like cover the costs of the trip that
And you, I mean, so because I've got written down like, do you enjoy the process and the challenge more than the success, which is kind of it sounds like I don't think anyone really enjoys the process of the actual competing moment, and you're not actually really training specifically for speed, so you don't really have a process. It's kind of, you just do it, don't you?
I just kind of do it. Now the main pressure I feel actually is, well, it's been different, like it's been different at different times, like what my, because as obviously those like motivating factors of money and fame have like died down, the motivation for each individual comp has kind of changed a bit. Like sometimes it's been to a lot of the time it will be just to like almost just prove that I haven't lost it somehow. Or what? No, I suppose it's just that in entering a competition, there's suddenly this pressure of like, and this is another reason I suppose why I'm always thinking like, do I want to do this anymore? Every time I enter a competition, there's nothing really to gain,
but there's a lot to lose.
There is a lot to lose because as soon as someone like beats me or whatever, then
it's
I suppose it's totally just ego to, like, I shouldn't really care, I suppose.
No,
it's just a thing of like,
you shouldn't.
Hendo's not the fastest anymore.
You shouldn't care, but it will exist. Let's say last year when you competed in NAPC, unless you bailed, where it's a little bit more understandable as to why you didn't get through, if it was simply a case of speed and you didn't even podium, that would be talk. Like, there would be people being like, oh shit.
Do you think that would fire you up to go again, though? Do you know if that actually happened?
It fires me up to push hard once
in the next one.
But I think I'm actually, that's becoming less and less of a motivator as I feel like I'm kind of have moved further and further away. Like, I don't feel like I mean, you tell, because you probably have a better perception of it, but I don't feel like I am defined by speed competition.
No, definitely not.
I don't see you as, like, when we're at not a competition, when we're at a spot, I don't think of speed. Like, there was that period. Which is cool, I think, because you're so well-rounded now. Yeah. And I guess...
Yeah, it was a choice to move away from it, I suppose. Like, So that puts a lot less pressure on me, because when it was like, oh, this guy, it's almost like this guy has value because he wins speed competitions, then it's like puts quite a lot of pressure on you to keep winning them.
Yeah.
Whereas now, like if I lost, I'd like, I'd kind of just,
because I mean, you haven't won every single one you've done since then, so it's and your life hasn't changed. People, I mean, I think it'll be a while before people don't expect it of you, but I think now we're starting to get to that stage where it's not like, if you suddenly turn up to an NPC and you're like, nah, I'm not doing it this year, people will be like, yeah, fair enough.
yeah.
If you'd done that 3 years ago, 2 years ago, people will be like, whoa, you're like the guy. Like,
but then you might end up not doing speed and then just going, I might just do skill.
so that's the other thing.
I enjoy seeing you in skill as much as I do as speed, because now people know you in all these different categories. And even in style, like just because you've got some gnarly
style. Oh, you weren't there, were you? I can
Nova City,
Nova City.
Yeah, but you have got some like flips going on that are actually kind of scary. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, it's something I've like progressed at in the last year or two for sure, and I'd like to keep
it's just an exciting new thing. Yeah, I guess that.
Do you like the style? Because I mean, skill is, I think everyone can understand why people enjoy skill.
Fucking gnarly.
And skill, I really do like. Actually, in the way that speed feels mainly just like scary pressure to me, skill I like fully enjoy.
I've never met anyone who's tried it. Yeah, I've never met anyone who's tried it and hasn't just been like, that was actually fucking sick.
It's training. It's just
someone's training with your mates.
You've got to do it in like a.
They're like, cool, one bang that, and you're like, oh, and then Tim one bangs it.
And I feel like all the like, if you look back on just memories of like training sessions out in the city, like the best ones are ones where you're out with a group and like someone starts setting a challenge, and you're all sort of like queuing up to do the challenge or whatever.
Yeah, exactly.
Skill comps are literally just the
it's just that a little bit confined,
like a competitive setting.
Yeah,
that is cool.
And then I mean, like style, I think is much more of a.
It's very free to do what you want to do.
Well, and when
you don't have to do loads of flips. Really, there's no rules to do that. So you could just put a skill line together. Really, it's just fucking difficult. And I think it's still.
But what I've always enjoyed with style, when I've like done my little attempts, is I'll spend the time practicing, and I'll be able to do everything in a sequence, or I'll be able to. And for me, it's like cool. Well, that little window, that 30-second window, is just like, am I good enough to myself to do it in
on
that?
This go?
And I'm sure as you get better, then you start thinking like, oh, I have to think competitively and try and land this better than Ed or whatever. But it is exciting creating that path, because with speed and skill, it's already chosen. So you don't. It's like I've set myself a challenge. Can I do this sequence in that time period?
Yeah, I think that's cool. That's a lot. Like I do like just take enjoyment from sort of testing myself and putting myself to new challenges and just seeing how like recently
we'll come on to that in a minute, but
fighting. But so like the idea of doing like skill comps and style comps on top of speed was like that initially, and then obviously I've like had success in skill and actually like done better in style than I kind of expected to, and like and enjoyed it more than I even expected to as well. And like the one I did at Project Underground, I did well. I think maybe I even like came in first or second in like the first round.
It's because you have that mindset that you were talking about earlier. Because it's like this thing you're going into. You're like, well, I might as well try and do as good as I can.
Yeah.
Because that's how you have fun with it.
Also, I think a huge factor is if you go to more competitions and you see the qualifiers, you see what doesn't work.
Yeah.
So if you watch a lot of kids do blocky stuff where they'll do like a cork and then they'll run over there and then they'll do, and you see them score low and you can feel the crowd reaction, you're like, well, that's why they're not doing well.
Yeah.
Because whenever I've seen you doing kind of style lines, like there's a huge amount of connection. Like the difficulty is not crazy high in terms of flips, but you make up for it in all the other areas. So it's like those are the factors that
because you see you know, like the kind of classic like doing one move and like I don't enjoy watching that.
Well, it's the one move there and then
I
they go to
know
another
that
bit.
it's like whenever you see someone do it, it's like, especially someone who's sort of like they came in really serious, like I want to do well, and
you can score it in your own head.
Lost, like by like not even by failing, just by failing to like figure out that you need to connect moves. It's a choice to make at the beginning. And
exactly.
You just made the wrong choice. Just connect your movements.
It is a lot to do with choice, really, which is pretty cool.
Yeah.
And my final run at Project Underground, I was literally like, I wonder what will happen if I just try and do all the like hardest stuff I can think of that I can do here. in one run, and I just tried that, and literally like I think about halfway through what I'd planned, my arms just sort of gave out.
You do realise that, don't you? You're like, wow, my body can't actually do all of that at the same time.
Yeah,
it was hilarious. And Ed had said to me, he was like, you need to like you could cut it there and it would be a good line. And I was like, yeah, I know, but like I just want to try. Like,
still got one more castaway to do.
At that time, I'd already won speed, and so I was I didn't have the sort of like. I haven't. I need to cover the cost of my train to get up here or whatever.
Yeah. And did you feel like there was no pressure behind it either because it was a completely new area? No one's watching you. Although you do really well. No one's watching you seriously, as seriously as it would be speed,
in the
which
same
is
way
cool.
That speed comps, I feel like now I have nothing to gain, everything to lose. With the style comp,
you got nothing to lose,
everything to gain. Because if I don't do well, people are like, they just sort of enjoy like, oh yeah,
exactly,
like, nice one, man. Like, they know it's not like what I'm sort of used to be doing. In their head, it's not what I'm meant to be doing. It's like, oh, it's cool that he's trying that.
Yeah.
And if I do well, then it's like, what the fuck? Like,
that is cool.
Yeah, it's like a surprise.
Yeah. All right, should we do it?
Yes.
The figgy pudding.
The figgy pudding.
Yeah. So the only reason we made a big deal out of this is because we kept bringing it up whenever we'd be like, oh, we need to get Ender on the podcast. And we'd be like, yeah, we need to ask him what happened then. And then we never did it. So, as far as I'm aware, everyone knows about the fig situation. It's kind of gone quiet for the moment because it's the off season. I'm sure it'll pop up next year because it's not going away. You seemed fairly anti-fig, as were a lot of people. And then as kind of expected, there has been a slow shift towards being more accepting of it, more people competing, etc. So you went from kind of being we don't need to go into like, oh, why not and stuff. It's more
that stuff's
what
old
was that
now,
transition like? Why I think I know the answer, and then also what happened at those two comps, because you went out and there was people kind of aware you were there, but there was a weirdly quiet social media presence from what I remember. It wasn't like, we're out here. It was kind of like I think you, Ed, and Tim went out, and then you didn't do that well, right?
No, I didn't.
And it was that was one of those things where it was so expected because it's a fucking straight line course. We were like, surely he's just going to bang this. Like, so to wheel it back, I don't want to spend ages on the topic because it's kind of
it's dead now, isn't it?
Well, it's not dead, but it's been flogged.
Well, it's not. Yeah, I don't feel like it's as predominant as it needs to be anymore.
It'll probably just like it just cycles as soon as like a competition pops up.
Oh, for sure,
then it will all be in the comments. Like,
and
then people will start posting, stuff about. It's like kind of what's the word? It's like it's not current news. It just fluctuates. Like when there's competitions happening, then it's in people's minds and stuff. But, so where do you want to start? Like with
I want to know what the turning point was. Before you went, just like what were you thinking in the sense like
I'm going to
could actually just suss it out.
The very initial thing. So the very first fig competition there was actually going to be the second Apex International. Which I, along with 11 other athletes, was invited to. It was this invite-only thing. It was just the Apex International. It was going to be in France. 2018, I think it was. In
no, it was 2017. Because the reason I remember is because I was in LA for the RCA thing, and then found out about, I think Amos or someone told me about all the bullshit because I was going to be involved shooting it, and then they were like, it's all gone weird because of this, like it's now transpired that it's going to be this fig thing and we're not comfortable and stuff.
And strangely, it's actually incredibly odd how weirdly linked in I am with the entire timeline of like fig and stuff like that. So even before the very first people who came to fig and proposed the idea of working with parkour to create these competitions and try to go Olympic,
I think I know who you're going to say.
The guy who it was, he came to them with the video of me winning NAPC 2016. That was his.
The guy from Brighton, right?
Yeah. Mark Cooper.
Yeah.
Who is he's like an Olympic advisor kind of guy. He works in sport politics and stuff like that. There's a long sort of history to all of the sort of like how fig even came about doing stuff like that I won't bother getting into, and I don't think I'd probably get it wrong anyway.
Get sued.
But right. But when I was invited, so then I was invited because I was one of the, because the people who were invited were the people who'd done well in the Apex International and people who'd done well at NAPC, and so they were invited to this massive looking competition that just looked like this is the next step for parkour competition. I don't know how they've done it, but the Apex International is now like, the
it's
prize money
up,
is like quadrupled or whatever, and it's in France, and there's this crazy trailer, and then building a course for it and everything, and then so everyone's like super gassed on that, everyone's ready to go, and then I get a message from Eugene Minogue, who's the head of Parkour UK, director of Parkour UK, and he asked to have like a meeting with me in London to just talk to me about the competition. And he basically just gives me this whole load about, like, tells me about FIG. At this point I didn't know FIG existed, and he tells me about FIG, tells me what this competition is, and like all this stuff, like how they're sort of misappropriating parkour, what their like evil plan is, and all this. And I'm like, oh okay, like, and I take all of this, I take what he tells me and bring it to all the other athletes and sort of make a group chat and say, like, this is what I've learned. Like,
you were like a whistleblower.
And initially my thing was like, I think we should be careful with this. I think that maybe we just need to make sure it's like, at first they were trying to label it as like obstacle course racing.
There was that weird.
What I got from my conversation was Eugene was like, as long as it's labelled as parkour, it'll be fine, because it's not some other thing like replacing parkour or something like that. But then it kind of ended up being like, oh no, like this, I think the best thing is that this shouldn't happen. Like, it's not clear whether it's a good or a bad thing, but we shouldn't jump into this. So, like, let's take a step back. But I was aware that just me taking a step back wouldn't do anything. So I wrote this whole like letter to send to all the other athletes, and made a video as well to send to all the other athletes, and to send to the Apex guys, Amos and those, to tell them like, this is what's going on. Like, and convince the athletes that like, we don't feel comfortable competing now, so we're pulling out. Amos and them were then like, we don't want to do this.
I didn't realize they were this involved like that. This is sick, because this is just I have not heard any of this like in between shit, which is really cool.
It's quite weird. It wasn't just a passive involvement. It was like very much.
That's strange. So that's like for you, that's like you're going towards one way, and then you've been swayed back this way, and then I guess it's going back.
And then like the reason I was like seen as vocally anti-fig, I think, was because that video I made just for the other athletes, I then one of the guys from Move Mag asked if I could send it to them. They wanted to have a look at it, and so I sent it to one of them, and then like next thing I know, it's like posted.
Oh shit!
And like, to be fair, like I didn't like at the time I didn't really mind. I was like, like what, like it wasn't intended to go out to the public, but like whatever, that's fine. And that was the first like anti-fig video. You know what I mean? But then obviously all this like FIG continues, and there's just like get new athletes to come in where we stepped out, and that event still happens just with different athletes. And there's the sequence of competitions, and I kind of like was fairly like vocal about being against it at that point, mainly, honestly, if I'm honest with myself, like mostly more out of like frustration and like almost jealousy, rather than real like educated being firmly against it. But in the like
jealousy against what the other
athletes taking the place where we've like stepped back and felt like we've done like made quite a big like moral sacrifice,
but
saying like, no, we don't want that money. We want that money, but we're going to say like, no, we don't want to jump into this. We're not sure what the situation with this is, and then just to see,
and then people
some other
taking it anyway,
in and like everything still happens. But
it's almost like your plan hasn't worked, right?
Exactly.
That must have not felt good.
And the argument they were using of like, well, someone would do it anyway, but it's like, well, no, but you're the people doing it anyway.
If you
didn't, then like whoever, like if everyone just doesn't, then it's not some impossible thing where like it can't be for. But yeah, obviously it didn't work. People wanted to do it. Fucking Nelmsy. Nelmsy gets a lot of bad press for things like that.
He does,
I
poor
really
lad.
like the guy. Shout out to Nelmsy.
So I mean, that was not that was, but we actually listened to a thing with Jake Carpenter, who was the guy who founded Burton, and basically he's considered the pioneer of snowboarding. Like snowboarding didn't actually exist really before him, and he died a couple of weeks ago from testicular cancer. But he was talking about when snowboarding was taken into the Olympics, and it was taken in by the Ski Federation, and the exact same shit happened. Like it just word for word, it's like, oh, same thing.
Yeah,
it's really interesting.
And do you know what the result from that was?
I mean, the way he says it, this interview is like a year old. Sorry, everyone, I'm eating a tomato.
And I've joined in.
Could I have a tomato?
Yes.
Thank you.
The way he says it is that, like, because it's been in the Olympics for a good few years. Well, I say years. It's every 4 years. So he said initially it was fucked. Like the first comps were like there was a massive rainstorm, and there was like downhill snowboarding happening, and they stopped the skiers doing their competition, and they wouldn't let them ski and things. Snowboarders are like, yeah, get at it, and like people getting fucking injured and things, and like it was really badly treated. All the courses were designed terribly, and like it wasn't being run by the right people. And now slowly the right people they're starting to work their way into the right places. So he said it is getting better, but it's still really not, like, it's not snowboard. Well, it's snowboarding, but it's not how it should be, kind of thing.
But it doesn't seem like it's like snowboarding. It seems like it's in a very good place.
Like from the outside perspective, I've never looked at snowboarding in the Olympics and been like.
But maybe that's how parkour would.
And even like non-Olympic snowboarding, like you see like video parts and documentaries and stuff, and they're incredible, and like and it seems like people are making a proper living off sponsors and everything like that.
Oh yeah, I mean snowboarding's much further down the line of where parkour is, and at a similar level within its own realm. I think it's a smaller sport because it's a snow sport, but it's on a similar realm to skateboarding in terms of like endorsements and things.
Mm-hmm.
You think about Shaun White and people like that, like the massive names.
Snowboarding, that the example of snowboarding being taken by the Ski Federation was one that like Eugene was using when I first met with him in London.
Oh right, yeah.
Sorry, I just ate it really like soft when it felt a bit mouldy. I was grimacing like
right, and tomato testings.
Snowboarding is one that was brought up a lot, and
BMX and cycling. And interestingly, at FIS, where some of the FIG comps happen, like the one in Montpellier, FIS is like the European X Games essentially. They had the BMX World Cup there, which is like the cycling federation and stuff. And that's another one where it's like, I don't know. That you look at BMX and snowboarding, and it's not like their cultures have been destroyed.
Yeah. Well, I think that is the defining thing, is that you can't kill the culture.
Yeah.
Like you simply can't, because at the end of the day, you as a 10-year-old are still going to go out on the street and do parkour. Like that's not going to change because of the Olympics or something.
Yeah,
I think
exactly. The turning point for me was really in line with like, well, me almost just like fully giving up parkour as a pursuit, really, like which
as in you were considering it?
I went through like
I'd say a year or so ago.
It would have been from last summer up to about like spring this
Interesting.
year.
Okay.
This year was like literally like the lowest, most lost sort of point of my life, where I was like, it was kind of a result of I went to America, I won like a bunch of competitions. I won. I podiumed in skill and speed at NAPC and Apex International.
Yeah.
So like 4 of like the biggest competitions in the world in 1 month. And I came out with like
nothing changed.
Nothing changed. The money just about covered the costs of the trip and all of. Was it the Motus tour? Was it that year? Or was it the year after?
No, it was the year after. It was the year after.
Really? Okay.
So it wasn't like last summer, as in a couple months ago.
It was when they had the skill comp at Apex that year.
Some of us were there though. I wasn't, but some of us.
Yeah, you weren't there. I was there. Yeah.
And I was just thinking like, I don't know, a bunch of things like just happening at once just kind of made me more like
questioning
my future.
How am I going to do
like
this?
What? Yeah, there's no kind of, and basically just like coming to the conclusion that like there's no future in this. Like,
breaking the hearts of many listeners here.
Well, but it has like a positive ending, I think, in the end, because obviously I'm still here. But at this point, it was like I've been kind of grinding with like doing regular content on Storm, like doing weekly content, but I was feeling less and less like impassioned about it and by it, and like it was really feeling like a grind, and like I wasn't happy with the content I was putting out. It always just felt like I'm just doing this for because it's another week, like we've got to get a video out on Friday or whenever it was. Like I wasn't proud of what I was putting out. It felt more like a chore than anything, and it wasn't like, didn't seem to be growing Storm in any way either. And then obviously competitions, like there's not enough money in there, and then at the same time I'm seeing people like David Nelms like go
winning
to big
thousands,
competitions
right?
and winning like $5,000 to $7,000 a pop, like at
and they had
five competitions a year as well. So that's the kind of money where like, oh, that is actually meaningful. Like,
I mean, if you won all 5 at $5,000, $25,000, like some people earn less than that a year. Many people earn less than that a year. So it's like, like that's sustainable.
But in my head at that point, still it wasn't like an option to do those competitions, I guess. Although even like then we were starting to consider it, and Ed and Tim as well. And like if you listen to the what's it called, the Hype Drop podcast, Brandon's podcast, the interview that me and Tim do together in there, I think we talk about Fig, and it was that summer, and like we're sort of saying like,
oh, was this before you done it and you were talking
this was
about
this was before. This was like like a half
that was the same.
about
That was the
it.
same summer that you won the 4
that was
events.
that was that summer.
Okay.
And we were saying in it, we were like, you could hear like we were talking about being anti-Fig, but then also you could just hear the cynicism, like, just saying like, but like
the tone of voice.
just saying like it's pretty fucking depressing to just see these people like getting all this money from doing it, and we're just like for some reason not, and being really uncertain of like, we're not even really sure why we're not at this point, but like those few months were like I kind of stopped training. I wasn't enjoying training either. Winter came as well, which is always just a low point anyway, because it like gets wet and dark and all this stuff. I fully was almost going to like drop. I was very, very close. If things had gone slightly differently, I would be at Sandhurst right now, training to be officer in the British military.
What?
The reason I was doing those like runs with weighted backpacks and stuff earlier.
I see.
What you were thinking about the enrollment thing.
I was training for like paratrooper fitness requirements.
But I mean, is that like?
I was having interviews and stuff like that. Like I was fully just like, I decided like fuck it, like I want some security in my future, and I don't see myself ever being in like a normal job, and I don't see parkour going anywhere. And the military is something I thought about since I was like 16, like I guess like for a bunch of reasons, but I feel like it would kind of suit me in a way, and so I was just like fuck it, I'm going.
I see this a lot in athletes, especially people who are like very much like really specifically just parkour, because it's not like you have some massive passion in photography or drone flying or something like that, like, and I see it where they go from like, well, it's parkour or quitting parkour full stop and just getting another job. And I've always been like, well, maybe you can't make parkour a sustainable living, but like, why would you not still maintain that as a hobby? Like, why would you not just get a job somewhere or do the military, but like still try and stay as involved as possible?
And like my idea wasn't to like, I'm never doing parkour again, but it was like, it obviously does make a big difference pursuing it as a career or something, rather than like pursuing something else and having it as a hobby. You know, I'm sure there are like thousands of people who have a job and train parkour on the weekends when they can. Like that's what it used to feel like when I was in school and stuff.
I mean, that's what, if you think about it,
that's how it all started.
I mean, if you look at skateboarding, the absolute minority are successful and actually use it to earn money. The rest of them just do it for a passion. So I wasn't deciding to quit parkour, but obviously it would be a huge difference in lifestyle closing that chapter,
close the chapter of trying to pursue it professionally. Like,
especially if you were going off to the military. Because you wouldn't have as much time, surely.
Stopping it being my entire life, because at that point, and still kind of is, like parkour was just such a huge part of like all-encompassing part of my life. And then plus the fact that it was like the military of all things, it really was going to, like, that is a very all-encompassing lifestyle also. So there wasn't much Do you think it didn't feel like I was just going to be like, you know, at some 9 to 5, 5 days a week job and then be training parkour on the weekends. It was like, I am probably going to like and also like I was taking it with the utmost. There was no like triviality in my mind about the path I was taking. I was very like aware that it is a path that the ultimate like culmination of which would involve going to war and being in a situation where there's people trying to kill you or like blow you up and that the best thing you can do to prevent that happening is like train in order to be effective in that situation.
I feel like that's kind of your mentality.
If I'm going into that situation, I'm not going to be like like military is just my job sort of thing. It's like,
no, you'd be going. I'm
going to be taking it
but I think that's what you're obviously quite good at. Is that once you decide your sort of path.
Yeah, I could see you being a soldier.
It's an all-encompassing thing, and you're like, this is what I'm going to do.
Yeah, and. Yeah, so anyway, I was going to do that, and then the thing that really, it was actually, you know, the Storm video, A New Chapter.
Yeah.
The trip that resulted in that video, the trip to like where Tim and Ed live in Exeter in Devon. That kind of made me. There was something about that. It was that combined with a couple of other things, and Fig being one of them. So it was the realization that like, oh my god, like I love doing this. Like it felt so good. And so we'd stopped creating regular content on Storm, and then we had this idea, and it's something I'd wanted to do for a while. And then it like talks during that trip made me realize that Tim, Ed, and Kai were on that same page of like, what about fuck regular content and we just try and make things we're proud of?
Well, that's kind of the only thing that's going to make you happy, isn't
exactly.
it?
Like, yeah. And so it was like a realization of like, oh, that could be like, actually there's a future in Storm of like doing that, like pushing in that way, like not just grinding out like crap, but actually like making things that we're proud of. And it was just the most like enjoyable trip as well, like just doing like crazy shit, camping out in the wild, like cliff diving and training as well, and like it was the first time I enjoyed training for a while. Like I guess just being one massive piece of advice, like if you feel sort of low in motivation in your training and you've just been around your home city for ages, just going anywhere else is so good for like just having some refreshing new spots, new challenges, new people to train with. And like they're training with like Ed and Tim and being in a new like surrounded by new spots, it was like, oh yeah, I remember like why I like parkour so much. And then conversations that me, Tim and Ed had there with Kai kind of like grudgingly just like listening like about like maybe like why are we actually abstaining from Fig competitions, and realizing that actually our views were like very unclear about it, and that we were making such a big sacrifice by not doing them as well in terms of like money and potential like future opportunity, and then the idea as well that I could also go to university. So I've been living with my parents up until that point as well, which I'm like super depressed about as well, like not because I don't like I get along with my family, but like I guess I value independence really highly. And
I think also in this life in England there is a stigma around like living with your parents for too long.
And to be fair, so many people do, and like even like friends who went to university straight out of school, they came back and
so expensive,
moved back in with their parents kind of thing anyway. But like I was like, I guess it wasn't even just that I was with them, it was also that parkour was giving me no clear route to ever be able to move out. And I was like, if I keep doing this, am I going to get to 30 and still be like just living? No, you've got yourself a house. He's pointing at
I don't own my house.
You've made your way into a house.
Sarah,
you fought your way into someone else's house who isn't your parents. So
I made someone love me enough to let me live with them. Trust me, those thoughts run through my head all the fucking time.
I'm sure. And it was, but the idea of also, I could go to university, I could be given money from the government combined with money that I'm able to make with parkour, study,
that's why he's going to uni. Rent. He's fucking just rinsing the system.
Pretty much.
I've been sitting here being like, is he what? What's he learning? You're a benefits. What are you doing?
Well, I'm studying psychology. So the idea was that another way I could do it was, for example, get like a part-time job at Sainsbury's or something like that, and make money that way to be affording rent. But
Bit depressing.
Yeah, well, yeah, but then I thought, hang on, if you get money from the government to study, I could be studying something I'm really interested in, getting a degree, having
which is a backup,
which is a backup, and something that would lead into potentially like a future career, which I can definitely like see happening in the future. I can definitely see myself going into the line of psychology. Like I'm so like starting studying was a bit of a send, but it has consolidated the idea that like I am fucking interested in this.
I feel like always ever since knowing you sort of well enough to have proper conversations, you've had angles on things that are just deeper than your average conversation. Like you've always been a little bit interested in just like thinking about things more in depth.
I think I've always been like interested in thought and like the sort of pursuits that involve thinking, I guess. I did well in school and all that sort of thing, and I like read from a young age, and like was always interested in reading, and since the
look at this nerd.
I am. And since leaving school, or since like I suppose the last couple of years where podcast seems to have become more prevalent, like any moment of my life where I'm not actively engaged in something else, I'm listening to a podcast, like either Joe Rogan or Sam Harris or just like something like there's always just information going in, and so and I realized a lot of it actually was on the topic of psychology. But essentially just realizing that going to university, the formula of being able to be independent in the short term and potential sustainability in the long term, military was a answer to that, but an answer that enabled me to be more multifaceted in my life was university plus FIG competitions plus continuing to do everything I'm doing with parkour and trying to push that even more.
Would you say that, how long are you in uni for? Like 3 years?
3 years.
Is there kind of a bit of an ultimatum there where you're like, let's give it these 3 years? Because obviously at the end of university, your financial situation will change.
Yeah.
Is there that kind of in the background of like, let's see if I can keep this parkour thing going, and then...
Not really at the moment. At the moment, it seems more just like I'm just trying to push as hard as I can with all the facets,
all the
and just seeing where each of them take me.
Fingering many pies.
I'm fingering all the pies right now.
What line
but
of...
also the thing like with university, if I was to be like so a psychology degree itself is good for like there's a fair few like career things you can go into that, I suppose. But if you actually want to follow the line of like going into work in psychology, whether it's like clinical, so you're sort of helping people, or research where you're like looking into, doing your own studies, and you need to go beyond degree level. So after degree, if I was to follow that line, I'd be doing a master's, and then I'd be doing a PhD, like going all the way. So it doesn't feel like there's necessarily a cut off at 3 years. I'm really like uncertain, but uncertain in so much nicer of a way than I was uncertain a few months ago. Where a few months ago I was uncertain because it felt like there was nothing in front of me. Now I'm uncertain because it feels like there's a lot of potential paths in front of me, and it's just a matter of following all of them and then being like, like this one's going somewhere, I'll follow this.
What I found is like uncertainty in life causes anxiety, so to speak, because let's say you have a decision between doing just two things. Making that decision is like, no, I don't know, there's the benefit of this one, there's the negative of that one, what do I do? Once you decide that one path, the other one's irrelevant. So it's like then you have to deal with whatever comes on that path. But getting through that uncertainty is like actually the best thing to do. So it's like you've made that decision, so now you're like, okay, well I've made that, now I'm doing this for the next few years, and I'm dealing with like shit that comes up as it happens, but now I'm not in that fucking horrible headspace I was of like, so you've made that decision and now you're kind of working through it. And I think everyone lives their life, I don't think you ever feel completely certain with everything, do you? Because there's a choice on it. Fuck off, fucking.
If you were certain,
I'm bashing tomatoes across the table.
There you go.
But okay, just to wheel it back slightly to the fig thing. So the main thing, I'm not letting it slip. Not that I don't really care. Oh, you eating?
Tomato really close to the mic.
I don't really care, but I also feel like because we keep bringing it up, we need to.
Yeah. No,
so it was pretty much extrinsic. It was just like I'm going to do this for money.
It was realizing what I was giving up by not doing them.
Yeah.
Like in the very real sense of like the money that I like in my head, looking at my track record of competitions, I've won like every single competition I've
95%.
entered, other than when I've fallen at that point, and even when I've fallen, I've come like second.
Yeah.
And applying that to FIG competition, it's like, so if like assuming that would remain consistent for FIG competition, say there's like five a year. Like we talked about how much money that could potentially be making.
Yeah.
Still not like, not like some crazy amount, but enough that suddenly
It's a lot more than the other competitions.
Yeah, you're actually sustaining.
I mean, if you earn 25 grand a year, you can afford rent on a flat and food.
Exactly.
Like, which is life.
Yeah.
Like,
sustain life.
yeah.
And so it almost became like by deciding not to do that, you're literally deciding not to be able to sustain the living doing
that you
what you
wanna
love.
do.
Like you're like, essentially I was deciding like I would rather join the army than do these FIG competitions.
Yeah.
And so it was like okay, that realization made me reevaluate my reasons for not wanting to do them. It was like, whoa, hang on, okay, so if it's that big of a deal, you should probably, because I knew that I wasn't like, I'd gave the reasons for why I didn't initially compete. It was just a thing of like, we're not sure where this is going, so we should probably take a step back.
Yeah.
And then from that point, it was kind of like, well, I've said no now, like I guess, and everyone seems to not like it, so I guess I'll just keep like not doing them. But then realizing how serious of a decision not doing them was like, well, you should probably be certain that you have good reasons for not doing it.
It's like you either essentially give up your life that you love and have done for the last 13, 14 years, or a few people online call you a traitor.
Yeah. And
People
but also I'm not saying the stuff about like giving up the life as well to kind of like try and pull on people's heartstrings, but it was that made me realize like, you better have fucking, for yourself, you better have some bloody good reasons why you're not doing it then.
Yeah.
And in reevaluating it, the reasons that I had really for not wanting to do them really just fell apart. Like a lot of the things I'd been told by like Eugene Minogue and people like that, for one thing, my trust in them totally fell apart. I was like, well, I'm just literally just believing one group of bureaucrats over another group of bureaucrats, and it seems like the FIG bureaucrats actually seem to have a lot more in common ideologically with me than the Parkour UK people, in terms of like Parkour UK were like not, they said they weren't anti-competition, they said they view parkour as a non-competitive
but then also have made
sport.
weird threats
but
about
like blocked attempts by organisations in the UK joining with SPL, like the guys.
It's like,
who
you can't call that a parkour competition.
Yeah, you can't
it's like,
call
whoa,
that. Yeah,
like,
you can't call that like all this like literally blocking attempts to progress competition in parkour in the UK,
which is such an
did not know
undeniable
that.
thing that is not going away.
Yeah,
Like,
it's like, what exactly are you doing, Parkour UK? Like, you've got parkour recognised as an official sport.
I mean,
like,
Eugene's left now.
Yeah, he's
so
yeah,
now I
he's
don't know
now
what's
left.
going on with Parkour UK.
And I had a lot of insider info from like people who are on the committee and stuff, and it just sounded like an absolute shit show. And even the ones I knew had very like, they were like anti-competition and stuff like that. And like, hang on, like these people are just totally ideologically opposed to me in that sense. Like, and should I be taking their word for like figures evil, or are they just another organisation trying to have power? And so of course they're going to tell me that the other organisation trying to be powerful is
it's
evil,
the bad one. Yeah, I'm running for a week. Keep talking.
Oh yeah,
keep going.
Should we talk about something fun now? He's got tomatoes.
Tomatoes. Are you fucking ate all of them? No, this is.
Alright, Callum's having a poo. I've got.
So yeah, Fig, we were talking.
What were you?
Nothing about you.
Oh.
But yeah, it basically came down to the evidence not really pointing in either way I think that the conclusion I took from sort of reevaluating what I knew about FIG was that it is an important thing. It's something that's going to have an impact on the future of parkour.
Mm-hmm.
Therefore, it is a risk because that impact could either be positive or negative, but it certainly could be positive. So then it was a should you not get involved because of the potential of it having a negative impact. And it seemed like then the argument also came in of, and it was the argument that I hated the like initial people who went into Fig using, but the argument of it's going to happen anyway because other people are doing it.
Yeah.
Which, although I hate it when the other people used it, is valid when I used it because those other people were just proving that was you are doing it. So it's going to happen no matter what. It might be good, it might be bad, but it actually could be good. And I saw that like there's definitely potential for it to have just a massive positive impact on, like, obviously providing just like money for athletes who compete. Again, a very small minority of athletes would actually get like money directly because, you know, you have to be
good. Yeah.
You have to podium.
But that's the way any sport has to be.
Exactly. Yeah. But then also less directly by taking parkour to the Olympics, growing its name, the kind of sponsorship opportunities that would come with just greater audience in parkour. Them actually putting money, and this is something that they've said they're interested in doing, putting money into like grassroots competitions like NAPC and stuff.
Oh, they've
like
said
that.
that.
Yeah.
Oh, interesting. Because that's something that I was confused about, because people said that Fig could take those grassroots competitions away. Do you know what I mean? Well, that's what was going around.
And there's a lot
of...
You're right. I'm back from the bathroom.
Nice.
I wonder if people would know at all. Like,
we'll keep
few
it
people who recognise them.
Giles like.
That's interesting. I feel like someone might have said that to me before, though, that they're trying to put money into things like that. Is that because of conversations that they've had with other freerunners who are worried about that, or?
It is the idea that, so I've had quite a few conversations now with the sport director for gymnastics for Fig. So like one of the top dogs in Fig. I'd say he's almost like he's a really nice guy, to be fair, but like, you know, that doesn't mean much. Actually, one thing he said to me was when I was talking about Mark Cooper. I asked him about Mark Cooper, who's the guy we mentioned earlier, who sort of like catalysed this whole thing. He's got a very bad rep within the parkour community. He's been very like, sort of like villainised and stuff, I guess, mainly just because of this connection with Fig. And I mentioned his name to Steve Butcher and said, like, what's his deal? Like, is he like a bad guy or whatever? Like, does he have some bad intentions? And Steve, this like sport director, was kind of like, everyone's got an angle that he seems decent. And that statement, it was like, I guess that's true. Like, you can't necessarily judge people by just whether they have some in like selfish motivation. It's like everyone has some angle they're trying to get. So I was like, okay, maybe the right analysis for like whether to work with someone isn't like what their motivation is. It's helpful to know what it is, but it's like forget what their evil or good plan is or whatever, and just be like, are they going to help or hinder me and the things that I believe in? Like, like, even if he has some grand evil plan, like for some other thing, is like doing this thing with him going to help or hinder like parkour grow? And it's like, oh, it's going to help it, then I'll do it. But I don't know, that's a bit of an aside, but essentially with Fig, it was that it's up in the air whether it's going to be good or bad. It's going to happen anyway, and I think that I could have a real effect on it being more positive than negative, being more likely to have a positive outcome. I think by being involved in it.
It's the undeniable thing that you if you can get the right people in the right places, it's going to
definitely
alleviate issues that could come up.
And even just by being in there already, it's like being at the competitions, you have quite a they really are trying to do well by the parkour community,
right?
And by the sort of sport of parkour, because they kind of have to make it successful. They have to they have to do it right, and especially when them doing it right aligns with it looking the best, like in terms of like being the best spectacle, like in terms of like the competition itself, the setups of the competition they do. Like if they have like a crap course, for example, not only is it going to be shit for parkour people because it doesn't provide a good like competition and all this sort of stuff, but it's also not going to be as interesting to watch. What I've been pushing in conversations with them that I've had like while I've been at these competitions and some email exchanges and stuff is it is for the benefit of everyone if you work more closely with people active within parkour. So I've been trying to encourage things like look, you want these courses built and designed and stuff, get SPL to or Jump Freerunner
involved, aren't they? But also it's like, I mean, who does design the courses? Because they are undeniably not the best.
It's weird. It's like straight line shit.
So right now the director for parkour is Charles Perrier. He's like one of the Yamakasi guys, but he's like just old school and doesn't really know anything.
They're just undeniably bad, and it's like it would be so easy to go Hendo and Charles Pujard and someone else design the speed course. Go.
Yeah, and if they said that to me, I'd say no, but here's my mate Renee Scavington who will design if he's willing. Like and because that is the problem with this guy Charles, who's currently in charge, is that he is. I mean, this like mate. I don't know. It feels bad like talking about his name like this without being like 100% in there and on the details. But it seems like he is he shouldn't really be there. He's there because Fig thought that the community would be happy like if they had people who were the founders involved in it. Like,
but like with the whole Bell thing, it was like, why the fuck does he suddenly get to speak for us?
Exactly. And obviously like that's outside organisation like Fig, they're like, oh yeah, like and it's a massive thing that it's parkour's like one of the only sports, certainly the only sport that's big in that way, that where like the founders are still alive.
There is a straight up like he started it. Like,
so it's like if they want like, the community don't feel represented, like, we'll get the founder to be. But obviously the founders aren't really relevant anymore. And everything. Mm-hmm. So there's this guy Charles, and he shouldn't really be there. He's not really competent for that position. Yeah. And to make matters worse, he is scared of losing the power, so rather than dishing out roles and bringing in competent people,
somebody might perform better than him.
Exactly, which is what like a good leader should do. It should be like, and he's stupid for doing it himself as well, because like the Olympic Committee or whatever would come in and see this really good course and this really good competition, and he'd be there as like the director of parkour, and they'd be like, well done, man, you've done a great job. Mm-hmm. But instead he's sort of scared, and I think they allocate him a budget for things like design, and rather than paying it out, he's like doing it himself or getting like students at his gym to do it.
Oh wow!
It's that kind of thing, and it sucks. And that's why the courses are the way they are now. Yeah. But this is the thing, like it's going to happen anyway, and already just by being there, I seem to have been like swaying the minds of like the higher ups in FIG in ways that like maybe some of the athletes who have been there already who like English isn't their first language and they're not as maybe assertive or like articulate or whatever.
Well, that was the thing, is some of the athletes who kind of didn't reject it in the first place and stepped up, the kind of not Nelms but the other people like that, were like, oh, well, somebody else is going to do it. We should try and get the right people in the right places. But they were not assertive people. No. And I just couldn't imagine them sitting down in rooms and being like, hey, we need to actually change this.
I've been in the rooms. And
I can imagine them going, we're going to do this. And they go,
all the people, like the athletes.
It's just, they're just like, and like they're obviously they're like, some of them are friends of mine, and like a lot of them are like really sick in like different ways. But like, none of them are.
Not everyone is of that.
They don't fit that role really.
Like, the role of like I don't know, trying to get things done in that way, like being involved in a political situation like that.
Are you involved moving forward on a athlete sense, or are you actually going to get involved BTS?
I have been getting involved BTS without any official titling of it, but it seems, I don't know how I've managed it, but I've been in like I seem to be someone now. It's funny because I've come from like the total opposite. Like,
but I mean, in some ways,
you didn't start that way. Do you know what I mean? So it's kind of
but I seem to be someone. God, they'll probably like listen to this podcast and be like, "Fuck, he's like dishing out the fucking information or whatever."
The secrets.
But it seems to be someone that they now trust. Like, and I'm trying to talk with them, basically bypassing people like Charles and talking to the higher ups at FIG, like the president, and the sport director, and just saying like these are, and my basic line is I'm trying to make it simple and easy to follow and just giving them instructions to do, but my basic line is just like, look, there are so many reasons why pretty much the answer to all the problems is just work more with the right people active in the community. And obviously it's not just a challenge of getting FIG to work with those people, it's also like, obviously like FIG is so massively hated and people get pillarized for working with them that and everyone has their own reasons for not wanting to, that it's like if like ideally I'd want, say, SPL designing courses for FIG comps, like SPL like don't like FIG, they don't so it'd be a matter of like talking to both sides. But the way in which it would solve everything is that by bringing in people, the right people from the community, for one thing, you're then providing more opportunities for more people within parkour. Not only now are like the top athletes getting paid prize money, but now like the top people who've been building gyms for years and are good at designing courses
and judges and stuff,
and now getting paid to do that, and now there's judges from the community being brought in.
Who judged
right now the judges are just random people.
Really questionable, right? Yeah.
Oh, and I think now this is pretty important. There's now been, I need to like I've been so I've taken like a back seat with all of it like recently and just been kind of like totally on other shit, similar to how everyone else, I guess, as the season's gone, I've kind of like died away from it, which I shouldn't really, like I should be on it. But there's a judging like course, I think, is happening, like a judging qualification coming out, which basically will qualify people to be judges at the competition.
For parkour specifically?
Yeah, for parkour specifically. Okay. And what we need to do is have people in parkour who actually would be good judges take this course so that it's not like a bunch of like gymnasts or whatever judging it.
Definitely.
Because anyone will be able to take this course. And it's kind of, it is this weird thing where it's like, it could be such a bad thing, so people don't want to get involved.
Because I guess
the only way, the thing that will ensure that it is a bad thing is if no one gets involved.
I think the fear that a lot of people have with FIG is like, if it eventually grows to the state, because they've brought out their what's it called? It's essentially their rule book of movement, haven't they? And they have it in gymnastics.
But the thing is, something like that with parkour competition developing, something like that, because everyone kicks up such a fuss when art of motion is like judged subjectively and it seems totally random and wrong, and then everyone sees like a guide for judging and they're like, no, fuck that. I think, and it's interesting, I was talking to Ed about it, who obviously like came from a gymnastic background as well, and Kai as well, who's like obviously just pure parkour background and has a history in judging. And something like that, like a book of movements and point allocation, is something that if parkour style competition was to become bigger and more officialized, it would have to happen anyway.
I mean, or you go down the skateboarding route and you have the, whatever they call it, the Stoke meter.
Do they have that?
They literally, so there's a system that was designed for X Games. I think there's now 2. I was looking it up a while ago. And the judges have like a wheel like this, and they watch a run and they turn it, and imagine it goes from 0 to 10, and they turn it as it goes, and it's just a live reaction of just like how gassed they are about the thing. And it takes it as an average across. So for action sports, it sounds ridiculous, but apparently it really works, because
it's like really reactive.
You can still have a category, so you're looking at that, but it's very reactive, and you just kind of go like, yeah, like that. And it creates this average score that apparently is just fucking really effective.
That's so interesting.
It's expensive technology, but it works apparently.
Brain scan.
You could just have a pen on a piece of paper.
And
just like move it up as you get more stoked.
Like one of those lie detector things.
But yeah, so I think like with parkour, like the ultimate in judging would be to have it would be so complicated to put together, because it would have to be flexible, because there's such a creative element to parkour, and there's such a diverse range of movements that, like, you know, the classic thing, how do you judge 18-foot running rail pre compared to a double backflip.
Yeah,
or whatever.
exactly.
Like,
Like, it's
but that's
fucking
no
hard.
that's no less of a problem if you don't have a rule book. If anything, it's more of a problem.
We just need to wait till
but
we
having some
robots
sort of
doing it.
crazy, complicated, flexible like rule book type thing that like I would not want to be responsible for putting together. But
Yeah.
like, someone will be at some point.
Yeah.
That's gonna like yeah.
And it's better to be the right person if it's going to happen.
I guess people need
exactly,
to realise
yeah.
that book isn't for parkour in general anyway. If something like
No,
that,
it's for judging.
it's for judging
competition.
competitions, which I think a lot of people will be scared.
And,
That,
and right, they really are sort of trying to do. Interestingly, Fig really didn't want to do style comps to begin with. They just wanted to do speed
Oh,
because
really?
they have like it's been an absolute. Obviously, they've been doing gymnastics for like 100 years, and even with that, like
Do you think
the
skill?
judging thing has been this massive. Just like
yeah.
ball ache, basically.
sure.
Of like, it's just the same thing. Like, how do you judge certain moves against each other and all this thing? And so they
Yeah.
were like, oh god, please, not another like subjective style based thing.
yeah,
Do
Do you think skill could
I
skill be
want
something?
skill to
There's
be
been
in there.
talks about it, but I haven't heard anything like definite.
That'd be great.
It'd
That
be
would be
easier
so
to
cool.
judge as well for
Yeah.
them.
And it's so
It'd
I
be
feel
a-
like for the audience, it's so easy to understand. It's like, well, he made it or he didn't. Like,
Yeah.
So
Tim's like, please have that skill.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Tim's
I wanna
got, like,
win
Ed
things.
excels in style, and
Yeah.
I'm consistent in speed. And then Tim's like,
What did he try?
I can like,
Did he-
kind of do both, but like,
Yeah,
he's not,
did
like,
Tim compete?
no either. Yeah, Tim competed in speed. I think he did better than me, but
yeah. So what happened? Just so we can.
yeah. Well, wow.
Yeah. Fuck.
Well, okay. So first of all,
they keep asking.
the straight line course thing, that does not benefit me in the sense. I mean, it could, but having a basic course doesn't mean that it becomes even easier for the best person to excel and be ahead of the pack. Like
Yeah.
whether or not the best person is me, it's like having a difficult course enables that differentiation of ability where, especially when it's technically difficult,
I mean, basically, the straight line is much more of a sprint with a bit of technicality. So if you are just overall faster, you're going to benefit, right? Whereas with
and-
you are a fucking technical god, and you can.
It's those corners that you'd cut, that you'd take so
Well, it's
preciously
also- I mean,
in
I've
normal
been-
competitions, I think.
Yeah, I've been editing this. It's coming out next week. This short documentary about course setting at NAPC, which is months overdue. But just watching footage recently of you compete, and it is like your impact absorption and transitioning that into other angles or other movements is like just so far above the majority that that's where you excel. Whereas I guess when it comes to straight line, you get someone like Nelms who is undeniably fast.
Yeah, and
Like-
and also not just the sort of direction change type thing, but also having route options where I will be taking a route that is
Other people
like
won't take.
scary, like so based on like my mental strength or whatever.
Yeah, that's a good
and
point.
my willingness to like do something scary and technical at speed, like say it's like some rail strides up at height, something or whatever it might be, some technical moment. And usually in speed comps you find one like moment, one
I love it.
particular
Yeah.
part which like separates the,
It's watching the practice, and normally you or someone else finds it, and then you watch everyone else. and
Everyone tries to
They either
imitate
have
it,
to
right?
step up, and some of them manage it, or some people go, "Well, I can't do that, so I've got to do my version as fast as I can."
yeah and then
But
it's
it's-
like, and you see, and often it will be like maybe 3 or 4 people that do that one particular thing.
Yeah.
And it's like, okay, so that's who the podium's going to be made
that's-
out
but
of.
that's a good
And then it's a
course.
matter of who's going to be like who's going to do it the best, and that'll be the order of the podium.
Yeah.
And exactly, that is a good course because that is because those people who did that, those people who are able to do that scary, difficult thing that is faster, they are the best,
Yeah.
which is why they then win.
Exactly.
And in the course at Montpellier, there was nothing like that. Everyone ran exactly the same course. I
Yeah.
did one thing that no one else did, which is like stride a bar. And what I wanted initially to do was stride and then stride off a rail to my left, like a parallel
Yeah.
sort of bar, and then leap over to the platform, so bypass this floor part entirely. But they then said we weren't allowed because the rails were too wobbly.
Oh no.
Which wouldn't have been the case if you had someone like Jump Free Run who was capable of building a course. And because people are running at the same time as well, you'd have one person would wobble it and then it would fuck up the
What do you think about the
Jesus
head-to-head? I like it from a perspective of watching.
I hate doing it, but it totally makes sense from a spectator. Like,
I think to grow it in the way that they want to push it, it does make a huge amount of sense.
For sure. And I have, like, I hate it just because it's like scarier, more pressure, and like you're not on your own. I like having I like having my own time at the beginning to like just exhale and
with a laser you can go whenever you want.
Exactly.
Whereas
going on a gun, but that's me just being like, you've got to do hard shit sometimes. And
for sure.
So, I definitely think it is the way forward. Like, it just makes it so much more exciting to watch. Like, not just for muggles or but for like parkour people too. You hear people like watching Hop the Block and being like, oh, it's so sick to watch that head to head.
For sure,
thing.
yeah. So essentially, to cut it short, it just didn't go well for you, like.
Yeah. So then from the offset, this route I was doing, like, there was pretty much no option. Everyone ran exactly the same course. There was no option there was no point where some people do this. And actually, the best way to explain it. They did the day before, they allowed like kids and beginners onto the course, and they had like a kids competition. The kids ran the course in the same way as all of us
which
did,
shouldn't be the way.
Which shouldn't be the case. Obviously we ran it faster, but it should be the case that the kids can't even do what we're doing. Because otherwise, like, some genetic freak of a explosive like
sprint
muscly kid could beat all of us,
and
not because he's better at parkour, just because he like has more explosive power.
That is interesting.
And just gets lucky and like is half falling the whole time, and gets it and just makes it across the finish. But then also, I then literally slipped. It was quite dusty and stuff. And I literally slipped pushing off the start line.
Oh shit!
And so I didn't do that well in the qualifying round. And I thought, like, I wonder, it'd be interesting. Like, I wonder if I would have won or whatever, or done well if I hadn't slipped. But in the final, but we'll never know, because you're about like literally like right up next to the laser, and they say 3, 2, 1, go, and they told us that it is on. You have 10 seconds to go. But we'd rather that you went at the same time, because we want it to look good. But
mentally, you can't let somebody else sprint off ahead of you and be like, "No, I'll take my time."
But as soon as I was like, "All right, I'll do that. That makes sense." Like, they want to, I want it to go to the Olympics just as much as they do. So making it look good in front of like Olympic committee people who might be watching benefits me. But I'm against David, and the gun goes off. And literally, as I just push off my back foot to start running, it just slips out instead of pushing. And I'm like, oh shit, well, I guess I'll reset, just take my time, because I haven't gone through the laser. But as I push forward, I think my knee just triggered the laser. Oh shit.
So because at the end of the day, it's it doesn't actually matter if
it doesn't matter.
It doesn't matter who comes first. It's the laser that gets
triggered. I could have let David run ahead.
You could let him do it. So you could let him do the whole thing and then just start yours.
Yeah. You have like it's like maybe 15 seconds or something like that within which you have to start.
I forgot that. Yeah, okay.
But we each have separate lasers. So my foot slips, my knee triggers my laser.
So your time was just fucked.
I didn't think I had, so I was like, okay, I'll just take a moment, reset, and now go.
Yeah, and that was it.
But I obviously added about 5 seconds to
Jeez.
Savage.
That's crazy. But wait, before we move on, if they were to change the course and add different corners and things, so it's similar, how would they do the head-to-head? They probably wouldn't.
It wouldn't even have to be a
cornered, just like cornered, different variables.
Hop the Block is a good example of like it's a straight line head-to-head course, but they still managed to make it so that there's parts where technical ability can shine and make.
Well, and also you could have a fairly thin path, let's say from the edge of this unit to that wall.
Yes.
But you could force a bit where you do literally have to go back on yourself. Because you could put a fucking impossible wall in front of you.
Yeah, they've actually added now that we have to go there and back to add like a direction change.
Oh, really? Interesting.
Which is,
I mean, it's just in development, isn't it?
Yeah, and everything. So it is in development right now. Like it changes every time, and every time they're trying to figure out what they did wrong.
Yeah.
And like with the courses and also with the judging as well. The judging changes every time because they're trying to like figure out how to do it. Basically.
Yeah.
Well done, you made it to the very, very end. Greetings again.
Well done.
Well
Through
done.
the slog.
Yeah.
Yeah, this is the outro, in case you realised.
Yeah.
As we said at the start, this was one half of another episode, which should be coming hopefully within the next week, where we talk in detail about mainly the Fame MMA thing that Hendo took part in with 8 days warning, and then also some aspirations for the future and personal tips and things like that.
He's a smart man. You shall learn from him.
He is.
He's an intellect.
It's that long hair. He's
Boys and girls.
wise.
Yeah.
Before the long hair, he was nothing.
There
Like
we go.
Samson or whatever that mythology is. Or, I don't know. Some old
No clue
story.
what you're on about. Sorry, my phone's going off.
Keelan's mum's like, get back here now. He's like, I should have left 5 minutes ago, but the intro's got deleted. Yeah, wicked. Glad you enjoyed it, because obviously you did. And because of that, you're going to subscribe if you haven't already, so the downloads automatically happen, which helps our ratings. You're going to go to iTunes, give us a nice rating and
you're
a
going
comment.
to buy a bit of clothing
And
as
you're going to buy some
well.
clothing, TMP10 to get
Just
10% off.
You know, it's Christmas and that. And also, we shall see you at For the Love Movement, for those of you who don't suck.
Yeah, if you're going
Sorry,
for the Love
if you don't-
Movement,
Yeah.
the best event, the real Christmas, we'll be there with a load of stock. Bring cash, because I don't know if we can accept card. And have a wicked Christmas.
Yes, indeed.
And
Love you.
New Year and all that. Oh, Keelan said love you because it's Christmas cheer.
Oh.
Bye, love you.